Well, what's up, guys? If you're new here, my name is Dom and this is Faith Family Homestead, and if you've been around for a while, welcome back. Today I want to talk to you about 4 things that you can do now to have a great spring garden. It's things that I'm doing, and if anything, I hope that this encourages you or maybe gives you some new ideas if you've been struggling with your garden or just need some ideas on how to improve it. And I'm going to share with you things that I am doing to hopefully have a better spring/summer garden. And the first thing on my list, which should be on your list too as well, is going to be soil testing. You should definitely soil test before your next garden you start putting in your next garden, whether that's the spring or if those of you are in a growing season that has like less days to grow. Most of the time they start closer to summer. I guess it's still spring, but I live in South Carolina, zone 8B, and here we can start putting in. My last estimated frost would be April. Actually, no, it's usually April 2nd, but this year they put it towards like May 27th, which is like a week earlier. But so in March, I can start planting. At the end of March, I can start putting stuff out into the garden. And before I do that, the first thing I would suggest that you do is soil test. I soil test for the first time a few weeks ago. I shared that video and I shared the results with you guys. And I've always been scared to soil test, just thinking about how tedious it seemed and didn't want to get it wrong. I'm a type of person who I don't like doing things if I feel like I can't do it to the best of my ability, or I don't really understand it, or that I feel like it's going to take a long time or anything like that. And so before I soil tested, I looked into doing at-home tests or doing tests that I could get immediate results. And even with that, I had to order it from Amazon or from a company and had to wait for it to come. And those were more expensive. Those were like anywhere from $20 to $40, which is what I was seeing on Amazon. And so I decided to go with my local agriculture company. Is it a company? Yes, Clemson. And their soil test was only $6. I just had to pay for per bag. I just had to pay for shipping, and I could put them all in one bag or all in one box, which was only $13 to ship. And then I did three soil tests, which was $18 total. It was super simple to do, which is one of the other things that I wasn't sure about, and which is why I've never soil tested before, is I would just always add in more nutrients and thought that would work fine, and just never really worried about soil testing because I'm like, that just seemed too complicated to learn, and it seemed above my head. But if you've been in my shoes and you thought that it was too complicated to soil test, let me assure you it wasn't that difficult. I literally just scooped some soil out of each bed that I want to soil test, mixed them together, kept the bags open to dry out because they did say send them dry soil, and then sent it to them. And it was really that simple with my email address, and they emailed me back in a couple days. This will save you so much time and energy going into your spring and summer garden. And I know for me, I'm expecting it to save me time and energy because before I soil tested, I had already bought my fertilizers for the season. And so I just bought a all-purpose fertilizer. And once I got my soil testing back, thank goodness I ordered from Amazon, because I realized that I didn't need an all-purpose fertilizer, which could be more expensive in some cases. And so I had got like the organic 555, and really realized that I didn't need the potassium and calcium, and so, or the potassium and phosphorus. And so I was able to send those back because I did order them through Amazon, and then just order some blood meal. I already had fish fertilizer, which is a high nitrogen, no phosphorus, no potassium. But in that case, it saved me money, and in some cases, it could save you money as well. Doing soil testing, they don't test for nitrogen, and so it will just tell you the phosphorus, potassium, calcium, boron, stuff like that, sodium. But if you have high potassium and high, other areas, or if you have low in some areas, there's different ways that you can fertilize your garden instead of just putting an all-purpose fertilizer, because phosphorus and potassium, unbeknownst to me, takes longer to drain out of your soil than nitrogen. Which leads me to my second point, which is reflecting on your past year's garden, which is something that I've done heavily, which is why I ended up doing the soil testing to begin with, and which is why I'm laying down landscape fabric and stuff like that, which was reflecting, seeing what went wrong, seeing what went right, and just analyzing and making sure that going forward you make changes on things that you did not like in the past season's garden. Things that I didn't like was keeping up with weeds. When I first built this garden, I was building it based off of the only previous garden I had before, which was in my old urban setting. It was a much smaller area. I was in the city, so I had access to lots more wood chips. And so I was basing this bigger garden based off of living in the city, living closer to where I could get free wood chips, and stuff like that. And so I had to adjust, and I really regret having to put down landscape fabric after I built this garden, because then I still sometimes get the grass growing up at the sides of the beds, because even though we tried to put the landscape fabric as close to the beds as possible, sometimes you still get that like aggressive grass that grows out to the side, and we've had to go ahead and start pulling grasses, which still takes time, and then they creep up into the beds. And last year when I got really busy with like ministry and life, it was a hassle to try to keep up with some of these beds weeds. It was really insane. So after soil testing, after reflecting, the third thing would come naturally, which is making a garden plan for your season coming up, what you're going to do going forward. In my case, I'm laying down landscape fabric. I'm coming up with a plan based off of what we're doing now in our lives, to continue doing that things and not adding in extra things. And so knowing which days I have available to dedicate to the garden, which is basically going to be like maintenance and stuff like that. And so trying to plan ahead and garden plan, which will save you so much time in the future and not adding anything during garden season. We homeschool our children, and so I have 4 children, if you're new here, ages 16, 11, 9, and 5. My 16-year-old son, I do not do much like at home homeschooling with him. He's considered a junior, but he's been taking college classes, dual credit, at the local college here. And so for the past year, so I have not hands-on homeschooled him for the past year, since last January. But my girls are still in that age where we do have to sit down and do homeschooling with them. And so trying to finish homeschooling with them before I get into like intensive gardening with them, garden season and like harvest season. And then also including them, which is what I always do in gardening. It's so funny. I'll tell you a story. One time, or a couple times, we garden a lot. And so my girls know what different seeds look like, or different plants, not all of them, but for the most part. And in one of my girls' science homeschool curriculum, it was to put a bean seed, plant it, and then watch it grow. But like we already put bean seeds, this cat down here, we've already put, she's seen beans grow, she's seen tomato seeds grow, and she knows what those things look like. And so that particular science experiment we were able to already have done, and she's already, knew what different plants look like and stuff like that. And so garden can definitely be a part of homeschooling curriculum, whether that be a science or, if you're really young, adding gym, math, whether you're, dumping soil or, fertilizing or picking stuff, just different ways that you can incorporate homeschooling with gardening and homesteading. My son was able to get high school credits for taking care of the animals. At one point, he was strictly milking the goats, taking care of the goats, like deworming the goats. Right now, he's responsible for the pigs. And so he gets credit for like animal husbandry. Granted, he wants to go into school, like he's really good at science. And so he wants to, work with animals. And so he loves that type of things. But on a homestead, he was able to get credit for those things that he enjoyed doing and the things that we're already doing on our homestead. Something that goes along the lines of reflecting and then making changes, or that garden plan that I've done, is I've moved this garden bed. So if there's anything that you realize you just didn't like in your last year's garden or your previous garden, then going ahead and making those changes. This garden bed was actually, I shared on my vlog. My last vlog was right there at the end of this bed, but you can see how this wooden raised bed right here is even super close to this metal raised bed. And so what I did was move this bed to right here. This spot was opened, and there was nothing really here, and I just didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. When I first put these metal raised beds along the fence here, I had it with the idea that I was going to put the metal raised beds going all the way down the fence, and then I didn't really like that idea. I ended up using 4 of the raised beds inside of my hoop house, and so it just left this bed really close to the wood. And as I was putting landscape fabric down and just analyzing that area, it was one of the worst weedy areas because there's not landscape on the outside of the garden, and so all of those weeds were just growing in, and it kind of just looked like a jungle over there. So now I like this new spot, and if I garden one season or two, 2 seasons a year with it this way and I don't like it, I can always change it. I just took out all of the soil and moved the bed, and I can definitely do that again if I choose to. The other thing is these beds used to be 3x6 beds, and let's see, all of these wood raised beds, you can see how that's a different piece of wood right there. All of these beds used to be 3x6 beds, and I changed all of them. I realized after gardening for 2 years, which is like technically 4 seasons, I did not like the shorter beds, and because it couldn't fit it couldn't fit cattle panels going directly across like I wanted to. I just felt really limited on what I could do with it, and so I changed it. And so I'm going to I already think I'm going to like the longer beds. I really love my log raised beds, and those beds are anywhere from like 17 to 22 feet long. And so, but again, if I don't like it, if I garden this season with it and feel I don't like it, I can always change it. And so that's basically what we've been working on here at the homestead during this fall and winter time, now that I can say winter, is changing the design of the garden. So once you have a soil test, you've reflected on your past year garden, and then you have a garden plan going forward. The 4th thing that you might want to consider is doing a cover crop. When I got my soil test results back, when I was speaking to the guy at Clemson, he was telling me that about cover crops, and I knew about cover crops, didn't really ever do them, didn't really fully understand how they worked and stuff like that because I've never done them before in my previous garden. But after looking into it more and thinking about cover crops and adding nitrogen, which I knew that beans added nitrogen to the soil, but specifically in my case having too much phosphorus and potassium, and the guy telling me ways to like flush that out is by keeping the soil watered and by adding in nitrogen in the ways of cover crop, blood meal, or fish fertilizer. So with cover crops, even though it was too late to plant like a long cover crop, I could wait until in some beds that I'm not planting right away and plant like legumes in certain beds and not let them go to seed or harvest. So get like some cheap dollar, seeds like pinto, or which is what I've done previously in a video, planted just store-bought beans. Let them grow a little bit and then cut them at the base, leaving the roots inside of them when I'm ready to plant that particular bed, because obviously I'm not going to plant all my garden in one day, or letting them grow a little bit and then crimping them at the base. I've watched videos where people have left the whole plant in, just crimped it at the base, and that kind of kills the plant. Well, not kind of, it does kill the plant, but then you're leaving the tops on the bed, and you're also leaving the roots inside the soil, which has the nitrogen fixing nodules, and then covering it so that the tops die and disintegrate into the soil, kind of like I did with the comfrey here. The cat thinks I'm playing with her. So like I did with the comfrey right there, and just like leaving it in the bed, kind of like a chop and drop, but covering it so that the heat like helps it decay faster. My garden kitty here helps it degrade faster, and then planting directly into that bed once you remove the tarp. I'm so distracted. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to be serious, and this cat is like been down here this whole time, just following me throughout the garden, which is so funny. Funny story. We got these kittens. It was a mom and 3 I think 3 babies, and they gave birth in the city in one of my church's members' house, and her husband's really allergic to cats, and so she asked if I wanted to take them, and so as like barn cats, and so I did, and then we got them fixed and everything, and left them inside our garage to heal, and then we let them free, and the mom and 1 baby left, but we still have 2 kittens, and all of a sudden, like, I have this garden kitty now. Oh my goodness. This is Shadow. You can't even see her. Where are you? Say hi. And she follows me throughout the whole garden now. Hey. So those are the 4 things that I'm doing that I think that would be helpful for you to do to have a great spring and summer garden. If you guys have any other things that you think that I missed or that you would add to this list, definitely let me know down in the comments and we can chat there. I hope to see you guys in my next video. Thank you for hanging out with me today.